I am on record to have stated after the elections that Abiola may not have won the elections. Upon deeper reflection and a closer examination of all available facts, particularly the detailed election results, which are published as an appendix to this book, there was no doubt that MKO Abiola won the June 12th elections.
The President, Commander-in-Chief, Senator Tinubu, my brother, my good friend, General Babangida. I know you since 1979. You made me what I am today. Without you, I could have been a dead man for a long time. He brought me up. Through you, I knew all the military governors in Nigeria. I traveled to Sierra Leone, traveled to Liberia, all the GOCs commanded, General Bakut, all of them. How can I thank God that also thanking you? I'm going to give you 500 million naira.
I am anxious to read the book. One thing is absolutely sure. Reaction galore. Again, it will be good, bad, and ugly. But your duty must be due, and you have done it.
And then came General Babangida's book launch. The political class is one big family. 35 years ago, some of the people in that Transcorp room didn't see eye to eye, and you would have sworn they would never get along. I don't know what you think about karma, but IBB has had the most perfect ending anyone could imagine, celebrated by those who once antagonized him. Even without an apology, he would have still been friends with some of them. That's the reality of class struggle, something Karl Marx once warned us about. Over 17 billion was donated at the launch of IBB's autobiography, yet they can't come together to remove children from the streets in the north and put an end to Almajiri. God sees us all. Aliko Dangote donated about 8 billion, and it was going to be 2 billion every year. It's a lot of money.
Okay, guys, we're doing our best to bring you the best. The least you could do is like the video, share the video, subscribe to the video, and at the end of the video, leave a comment. Curse us out, but leave a comment.
History was made on that table. If you can pull up the picture of the day, there you go. Heads of states, our former heads of, presidents, and of course we had Ibrahim Babangida there, President Tinubu, and of course Yakubu Gowon. History was made yesterday because we don't know when all these leaders will gather together. So for me, that was the picture of the day.
Hello, everybody. Once again, this is Fred Wanko coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Island TV. And as usual, I like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, depending on where you are around the world. Yes, a lot of money was raised 2 days ago at Babangida's book launch. My initial reaction to the book launch was mostly negative. But I'm glad it took 2 days to think and digest what really happened there. All is not lost. Regardless of Babangida's history with Nigeria and everything, the reality is that it's a good thing he put his thoughts to pen. Yes, the writer finds a way to write in a way that favors him. However, observers of the events through the years can decipher and have a good idea where the story is right and a good idea where the story is not quite right. If anybody was the winner at that event, it is the obvious person, Ibrahim Babangida. The reason he was the winner, besides the fact that he raised a lot of money, is that he had a chance to tell the story from his own standpoint, but also it gave him an opportunity to raise a lot of money towards building his presidential library in his hometown. That's a good story because a good library, which this is going to be, creates an opportunity for students and scholars to have a place to go and find information. But more importantly, it exposes all those Almajiri kids to the possibility of seeing the other side of life besides life on the streets. A good library is desperately needed in every corner of Nigeria. And this book goes a long way to raising money to build the Babangida Presidential Library. That's a win for the people of Minna and those young kids that are wasting in the streets. The reason he's obviously the winner is that people you didn't expect to be in the same room with him, adversaries 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, came together to celebrate his work. In doing so, he had an opportunity to tell his story to Nigerians. He had an opportunity to make a confession that only he can make, one that we could analyze and believe or not believe. However, I was disappointed that the person who made it possible for General Babangida to write this story and tell the story, the truthful story of how MKO Abiola won that election, the hero who made it possible for him to come off his lies and tell the truth, and that's Professor Humphrey Nwosu, who declared Abiola the winner of the election against Babangida's instructions and against the will of the North, who was on a rampage. So Professor Humphrey Nwosu did that at the risk of his life. If yesterday's book launch in Abuja brought out the best we've seen in Babangida, at least since he left the limelight in 1993, 30 plus years, this is the best Nigerians have seen him. Unless I missed it. I was surprised that not a single speaker, and a lot of them spoke, and I mean people in high places, who should know. There was not a single mention of Professor Humphrey Nwosu, the man who was the chairman of the National Election Committee or Commission or whatever, that ran an impeccable election, by all standards, the best Nigeria has ever seen. And the only reason Babangida found himself in a position to tell the truth to Nigerians that MKO Abiola won that election, the only reason he could admit that in his book and finally clear the air is because one man lived, and that man was Professor Humphrey Nwosu.
Upon closer examination of the original collated figures from the 110 polling booths nationwide, it was clear that he satisfied the two main constitutional requirements for winning the presidential elections, mainly majority votes and geographical spread. having obtained 8,128,720 votes against Tofa's 5,848,247 votes, and securing the mandatory 1/3 of the votes cast in 28 states of the Federation, including Abuja.
We must give credit where it's due. Having looked at excerpts from the book, something good may come out of this book. As they say, the end justifies the means. Does that mean that I'm absolving General Babangida of the atrocities that he committed that cost Nigeria years of growth in democracy? No. But the reality is that ours is a country of highly corrupt leader after leader after leader. And it gets to a time when we need to start trying to see what really went wrong. Putting things in writing is a good step towards finding out what really went wrong. Unfortunately, the writings are done from the perspective of the person writing. But that's okay, because we could do 1 + 1, 2 + 2, and put it all together. I still have a critique of the event. I just thought I'll start out on a positive note.
Many of the key figures in this book and who shaped the history of our country are here with us today. And that tells another story all by itself. And that is something truly unique about Nigeria. Our ability to move beyond the past, no matter how bitter and no matter how adversarial our past relationships may have been, and to still come together. So seated amongst us here today is General Yakubu Gowon, who became Nigeria's head of state at the age of 32 and led the country for 9 years. His government was overthrown in 1975 by a coup involving the then Brigadier Olusegun Obasanjo and the then Brigadier Theophilus Danjuma, and the author himself, I confirm, the then Lieutenant Colonel Babangida, who was then commander of the newly formed Armored Corps. Also involved in that coup were the then Lieutenant Colonels Muhammadu Buhari, Lieutenant Colonel Sani Bello, who is here also, and Lieutenant Colonel Sani Sami. Yet here we are today with former President Obasanjo, General Danjuma, and of course the author himself present, not as adversaries of the author, but as witnesses to history, celebrating a fellow statesman. In a striking turn of fate, the author notes that it was President Obasanjo who, after the tragic assassination of General Murtala Mohammed, insisted that a young Lieutenant Colonel Babangida be appointed to the Supreme Military Council, making him its youngest member at the time. Also represented here is the immediate past president, Muhammadu Buhari, another leader whose path intertwined with Babangida. It was former President Babangida who played a key role in the coup that brought President Buhari to power in 1983. And later, in another coup that removed him and brought Babangida himself into power. Yet today, President Buhari is represented at this occasion, celebrating the man who overthrew him and detained him for 3.5 years, his one-time old adversary, former President Babangida. And then, of course, there's a gentleman here who was an elected senator in 1992 in the course of Babangida's transition program. When Babangida annulled the 1993 election and General Abacha took over and dissolved the Senate, that senator tried to reconstitute the Senate in resistance to the dissolution. He was detained, charged to court. He escaped into exile. Today, he is also here to celebrate with his former tormentors. But as President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The third reason why this 420-page book is important is because it unveils one of the most enigmatic...
Folks, like him or not, Vice President Osinbajo actually did a commendable job of trying to tie all those disjointed former leaders, some of whom who hate themselves up till this day, trying to tie it together humorously and make people laugh. There's a song that's titled something like "Making the Best of a Bad Situation." That's what Yemi Osinbajo did there. It comes a time when we need to put our history in writing. My initial reaction to this book was negative. But then I saw the excerpts, some of the excerpts, and I said to myself, bad as Babangida has been in leading us down this ugly road that we've been on, this book actually may start the healing and the forgiving. If we've forgiven so many, why not him too? And I'll say that Babangida actually, with this event, and if you read the book, what he said in the book, did a good job of playing a role and not depending on other people to launder his image to Nigerians. So in other words, I'm saying that this was a high point for Babangida. Now the question is, if Babangida came out and more or less apologized to Nigerians and said that Abiola won that election, what point, it was a high point for Babangida, what point was this book launch for Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Could this also be a high point, a Jesus moment for Bola Ahmed Tinubu to think, because his co-traveler, Babangida, who denied Abiola a convincingly won election in 1993, has come out and more or less apologized and said that Abiola won that election 30 years later, albeit. Is Bola Ahmed Tinubu going to come out someday? Obviously not going to be 30 years, because I don't think he has 30 years to live. But is Bola Ahmed Tinubu going to come out one day and apologize to Nigerians and tell them that Peter Obi won the election in 2023, and in conjunction with the INEC chairman Mahmoud and the Supreme Court, they denied Peter Obi. In the process, they denied Nigerians. It's just a rhetorical question. The answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Former military head of state Ibrahim Babangida on Thursday expressed regret over the annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election, describing it the most difficult period of his life.
As the leader of the military administration, I accept full responsibility for all decisions taken under my watch. And June 12 happened under my watch. Mistakes, oversights, and missteps happen in quick succession. But I say in my book, in all matters we acted in the supreme national interest so that Nigeria could survive. Our nation's march to democracy was interrupted, a fact that I deeply regret, but Nigeria survived and democracy is still alive, a testament to our resilience and commitment to progress.
Yes, guys, our democracy is still alive. No question about it. But because of Babangida and many of those millionaires and billionaires gathered in that room on Thursday, our democracy is comatose and probably in the worst hands it's ever been under Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Folks, how much is money? Yeah, I'm taking from Flavor, the singer. How much is money? Is Babangida happy in the twilight of his life? Is he a happy man? He just raised 17 billion naira, which he could spend anyhow he wishes, and I strongly believe he'll spend it on the library because he has money. He doesn't have to dip into this. He can do that. But how much is money compared to your dignity? That room featured a collection of shameless millionaires and billionaires. Absolutely shameless millionaires and billionaires who individually could do so much more for Nigeria and touch so many lives in meaningful ways. Not in yesa masa ways, in meaningful ways by creating jobs across the 36 states of Nigeria. But many of those billionaires, except for a handful, hardly employ any Nigerians in meaningful jobs where the people can say, I have a stable job every 2 weeks or every week or every month. I get paid X amount of naira to take care of my family. You could hardly find millionaires and billionaires in that room that have meaningful employment. And they were being cheered and clapped for. When Babangida said he regretted annulling election of MKO Abiola, what were those people clapping for? Because they were applauding and, smiling and laughing and cheering. What were they cheering? Will those cheers and claps resurrect Abiola, whose life was lost because of that annulment, directly or indirectly? Would their cheering resurrect Abiola's wife, who also lost her life because of that annulment? Would the cheering resurrect the main hero from June 12, Professor Humphrey Mosu, to live to see a Nigeria that he wanted to build a strong democracy? All those efforts that he made has gone in vain because he's no longer here with us. Kokori died in this fight. All those wasted millionaires and billionaires in that room were rejoicing and stomping on the graves of the real heroes that they more or less came to celebrate that day. What about all those people who were randomly shot dead in the streets of Lagos on June 12th and the days that followed? Would the cheering bring them back? General Gowon, the main man who set us on this path, sat in that room so shamelessly insignificant. The blood of millions of Nigerians remained in his hands, especially millions of Igbos who died in a worthless war that shouldn't have been fought if he had been a man and stood up to Hassan Katsina and the murderer and the massacre of lives in Asaba, Muritala Muhammad. Yes, Gowon sat in that room. I wonder what was going through his head. And yes, the main man in that room besides the chief celebrant, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he cheered and clapped about Babangida's regret, I hope someday, even though it wouldn't change anything, I hope he also cheers and claps after he confesses that he stole the 2023 election that elected Peter Obi. God will judge every one of them. And the blood of everybody who has died in this process will hunt every one of them down. I'm not gonna say that that's a prayer, but it's karma. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Fred Mwanko coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Island TV. And until next time, good night and God bless.
Tonight I think of my home, the home where I was born. I think of my family and the poor farmhouse we had. There in my home, we had no sophistication. We had no timepiece, the cockcrow and the sun, all we had. Rise early at sunup, we'd go to the farms, drive the monkeys away from the maize farms, and the birds away from the rice farms. Come back home at sundown.